For decades, Michael Douglas has been one of Hollywood's most bankable leading men, an Oscar winner twice over and the son of one of the industry's original giants. But underneath the polished image of red carpet appearances and career triumphs sat a family story far more complicated than the public ever saw at the time. 2 marriages, a painful estrangement with his father, a son lost to addiction and prison, and a health crisis that nearly ended everything. This is the fuller story of what Michael Douglas built, what it cost him, and what he eventually learned to do differently. Michael Kirk Douglas was born on September 25, 1944, in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the son of Kirk Douglas, the Jewish son of poor immigrant parents from the Russian Empire who was just beginning to build what would become a legendary acting career, and Diana Dill, an actress from a prominent Bermudian family. From birth, Michael occupied an unusual position, heir to Hollywood glamour on one side and old-world discipline on the other. That inheritance came with real strain. In 1951, when Michael was only 6, his parents divorced, and the split hit him hard. His famous father, increasingly consumed by his career, became more of a distant public figure than a present parent, and Michael has spoken candidly over the years about how emotionally remote that relationship felt during his childhood. After the divorce, Michael's mother remarried a screenwriter named William Darrid, and it was Darrid, not Kirk, who gave Michael something he badly needed: steady attention. Michael later said in interviews that Darrid felt more like a real father to him growing up than Kirk did, describing a specific memory of his stepfather sitting him down, asking him genuine questions, and actually listening to the answers. A small act of attention that left a lasting impression on a boy who rarely experienced it from his biological father. That contrast between being seen and being overlooked would echo through the rest of Michael's life, shaping both his early ambitions and, later, his own approach to fatherhood. Growing up in a series of elite boarding schools, Allen Stevenson in New York, Eaglebrook in Massachusetts, and Choate Rosemary Hall in Connecticut, Michael discovered that his last name didn't buy him respect among classmates. If anything, it made him a target, reduced to being known simply as Kirk Douglas's kid. He found an outlet in school drama programs, one of the few spaces where he felt he could exist as himself rather than as an extension of his father's fame. That tension eventually pushed him toward a defining decision. Despite being accepted to Yale, Michael chose to study drama at the University of California, Santa Barbara instead, a deliberate step away from the path that would have kept him closest to the world his father dominated. His early acting career was a slow grind. His first film credit was a minor, largely unnoticed role as a Jeep driver in the 1966 film Cast a Giant Shadow, produced by his father's own company. Through the late 1960s and early 1970s, Michael worked in small television roles and stage productions in New York, living on modest paychecks while contending with persistent whispers that his only real qualification was his surname. He briefly used the stage name M.K. Douglas for one early television role in an attempt to be judged separately from his father's legacy. During this period, he also trained at the American Place Theater and the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center in Connecticut, where he formed a close, lasting friendship with fellow struggling actor Danny DeVito, the two of them sharing a cramped New York apartment while trying to break into the business. The real turning point came in 1972, when producer Quinn Martin cast him opposite veteran actor Karl Malden in the ABC police drama The Streets of San Francisco. The show became an immediate hit, and over its 5-season run, Malden became far more than a co-star. He became a genuine mentor, someone Michael has described as one of the most important father figures of his life until Malden's death in 2009. The role earned Michael 3 consecutive Emmy nominations and, notably, the rare opportunity to direct 2 episodes, giving him a foothold in production years before that side of his career would define him. That production instinct paid off dramatically when Michael, still in his 20s, took over developing the film adaptation of Ken Kesey's novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, a project his father Kirk had originally optioned back in 1962 and had long dreamed of starring in himself. By the time Michael and co-producer Saul Zaentz moved the project forward in the mid-1970s, director Milos Forman determined that Kirk was no longer right for the central role of Randall McMurphy, and the part went to Jack Nicholson instead. It was a decision that reportedly strained the relationship between father and son for a time, but it proved artistically and commercially vindicated. The 1975 film became a massive box office success and swept all 5 major categories at the Academy Awards, including Best Picture, with Michael accepting the award as producer. It was the moment that separated his name from his father's, on his own terms. Michael continued building a producing career, including the prescient 1979 thriller The China Syndrome, about a nuclear plant cover-up, which was released just days before the real-life 3 Mile Island accident, while also pushing to be taken seriously as a leading man. That breakthrough arrived with 1984's Romancing the Stone, a box office hit that reunited him with Danny DeVito and co-starred Kathleen Turner, followed by its sequel The Jewel of the Nile the next year. But it was his willingness to play morally compromised, deeply flawed characters that defined his most iconic period. In 1987 alone, he starred in both Fatal Attraction, opposite Glenn Close, and Oliver Stone's Wall Street, in which his portrayal of the ruthless Gordon Gekko, and the line, "Greed is good," became a defining cultural symbol of the decade. The role won him the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1988. Through the 1990s, he continued exploring similar territory in films like Basic Instinct, Falling Down, Disclosure, and The Game, cementing his reputation as one of the era's most reliable stars for morally complicated leading roles, even as, by his own later admission, audiences sometimes struggled to separate the man from the characters he played. While his professional life reached new heights through the 1980s, his personal life was quietly falling apart. In March 1977, Michael married Diandra Luker, the daughter of a diplomat, when he was 32 and she was 19. Their son, Cameron Douglas, was born in December 1978. By his own later account, Michael made a private promise to himself to be a more present father than Kirk had been, a promise that proved difficult to keep once the demands of a booming film career kept him away from home for months at a stretch throughout the 1980s. Diandra, left largely on her own, later described feeling more like a decorative presence in her husband's life than a partner. Michael also went through a serious skiing accident in 1980 that sidelined him from acting for a period, and by his own admission struggled with alcohol during parts of that stretch, eventually entering a 30-day treatment program in September 1992 to address it. The toll on the family was severe, and it fell hardest on Cameron. Raised largely without his father's steady presence, Cameron developed a serious substance abuse problem as a young man, which escalated over the years and ultimately led to his arrest and a lengthy federal prison sentence for drug trafficking. Michael has spoken with visible remorse about that period, acknowledging publicly that he failed as both a husband and a father during the years his son needed him most present. His marriage to Diandra, which had by most accounts been deteriorating quietly for years behind a public front of stability, officially ended in divorce. Diandra filed in 1995, and the case was finalized in 2000, becoming one of the most expensive Hollywood divorce settlements of its era. Just as that chapter of his life was closing, a new one began. In the summer of 1998, at the Deauville Film Festival in France, Michael met Welsh actress Catherine Zeta-Jones, then in her 20s, after being struck by her performance in The Mask of Zorro. Despite a 25-year age gap, the two connected quickly, and Michael has often recounted telling her early on that he wanted to father her children, a bold statement that reportedly startled her at first but eventually gave way to a genuine relationship. They married in November 2000 in a lavish ceremony at New York's Plaza Hotel, with their infant son Dylan, born earlier that year, present at the wedding. Their daughter Karis followed in 2003. Wanting a quieter life for their children than the one Michael had experienced, the couple eventually split their time between homes in Bermuda and elsewhere, away from the constant press attention that had shaped his own upbringing. By his own account, Michael approached fatherhood the second time around differently, consciously trying to apply the lesson he had learned decades earlier from his stepfather, the simple act of sitting down, listening, and being present. That effort was tested severely in August 2010, when Michael was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. The diagnosis had reportedly been missed by several specialists before being properly identified, and the grueling treatment that followed left him significantly weakened, having lost considerable weight during chemotherapy and radiation. Catherine remained by his side throughout the treatment, though the strain of his illness combined with intense media scrutiny including widely reported comments Michael made in a 2013 interview linking his cancer diagnosis to HPV, which tabloids sensationalized in ways that embarrassed and hurt Catherine, placed real pressure on the marriage. During this period, Catherine also went public with her own struggles, revealing that she had been diagnosed with bipolar II disorder and had sought treatment for it, a disclosure she made despite her general preference for keeping personal difficulties private. In 2013, the couple spent several months living separately amid the accumulated strain, a period that drew significant media speculation about a possible divorce. But by the end of that year, they had reconciled, and in the years that followed, both spoke publicly about having worked through that difficult stretch together. In 2018, Michael faced a separate allegation of past misconduct from a former assistant, which surfaced during the height of the #MeToo movement. He denied the claim, and Catherine publicly stood by him throughout. As Michael entered his 80s, he began stepping back from acting altogether. In July 2025, appearing at the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival in the Czech Republic to present a restored version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest for its 50th anniversary, he told reporters he had not worked since 2022 and had no real intentions of returning to acting, explaining that after nearly 60 years in the industry, he didn't want to be someone who dropped dead on the set. He described himself as content to support Catherine's continuing career instead. That declared retirement did not turn out to be entirely final. Later that year, he appeared alongside his son Cameron in the film Looking Through Water, a story centered on a father and son attempting to repair their relationship through a fishing competition, which released in theaters in September 2025. It marked the first time father and son had shared the screen in over 20 years, and for a family that had lived through addiction, prison, and a long public estrangement, the project carried an obvious personal resonance beyond its plot. Looking back across the full arc of his life, Michael Douglas's story resists the simple narrative that fame and fortune alone build a happy family. He spent much of his early adulthood trying to escape his father's shadow, only to recognize, painfully, that his own long absences during Cameron's childhood echoed the very neglect he had once resented in Kirk. His personal reckonings, with addiction, with a first marriage that quietly deteriorated over 2 decades, with a life-threatening illness, and with the slow, imperfect process of repairing his relationship with his son, paint a far more complicated picture than the glossy, red carpet version of his career would suggest. What seems to have mattered most to him in the end wasn't the awards or the box office records, but the smaller, harder work of actually showing up, something he has said, more than once, took him most of a lifetime to fully learn.